5 seconds. Going live. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Herbert. I'm from Brighter with Herbert.
And I'm Brian from My Tesla Weekend. We're doing one of these rare co-streams where we're live on 2 separate channels, and it's very exciting.
We're both on both channels. It's not rare because we do this every Wednesday. So every Wednesday, there seems to be some news that drops. Today's news is actually a pretty big deal in my perspective. It's about the Giga Shanghai opening up an expansion to produce a $25,000 compact car. So this is on top of the news that came out just a few days ago or yesterday with Elon being interviewed by Sandy Munro. We're going to play a little bit of that clip also. Elon talking about the compact car moving ahead much more advanced than they realize. But this news is very interesting because it's a little bit different than what Elon said. And I want to ask you about that, Brian. So basically the news says that Tesla's planning to restart the construction of the third phase of the Giga Shanghai factory. That's the part that's dedicated to producing the new $25,000 vehicle. This is coming from local media sources. People familiar with the matter, we always love that when they say that, eh? Confirmed that Tesla started preparations for phase 3 in 2021. They formed the team, but they suspended it in summer 2022. And then these people were, transferred to other departments. But according to this, late auto post, the production capacity of the third part is essentially to receive will be dedicated to the compact car. And then this is just kind of the vehicles that they're making there right now and how much you're making. So, Brian, tell me a little bit more about that story there.
So the history of the Shanghai expansion, as the article explains, is years old. We saw reports from 2021 that they were getting ready to move forward with that. I suspect what may have happened is that the Cybertruck engineering got a little deeper than they had expected, and the results have been wonderful. We've seen some pretty fantastic improvements in that line. So they put that expansion on hold. There were also a number of political tensions that arose that do not look to be as grave as initially expected or as initially feared. So now is a reasonable time to restart discussions on an expansion in Shanghai. We know their capacity to build factories is very quick. Their capacity to build vehicles is amazing. Their supply chain is thorough and robust and covers virtually everything needed except maybe the actual FSD chip, the hardware 4 chip, which is imported from, I believe the fab is going to be in Arizona for those, or it already is. But those are the only pieces that they do not make domestically. And so, as opposed to some countries where it's a bit of a gamble, making cars in China is no longer risky. It's a known thing.
So, okay, the part that's very confusing for me is just when we heard Elon being interviewed by Sandy Munro, he specifically said that we're doing it in Giga Texas, but the second place is going to be Giga Mexico.
Okay? Yes.
Now, this news comes out that they're going to expand Giga Shanghai. Which would come sooner, Giga Mexico or Giga Shanghai?
Well, the good news is the plan is to build it in one place and then replicate it. It sounds like they're already building something in Texas. Now, that expansion to the building, I kept saying, it's not moving quick enough to convince me that it's for the model, the compact model. And the shape might not be correct. Well, if it's as modular as we now realize it is, the shape may not be as critical of a factor. It may not need to be built in an exact shape the way it is for Models 3 and Y to still reap all the benefits. So if Elon said in that Sandy interview, I am reviewing the production methodology every week, which suggests that there is already some kind of pilot line that may be in place for it. And if that's the case, they've put it inside the building. The building is very big, and I was under the impression that a lot more of it was going to be dedicated to Cybertruck production, but the people who got inside and got to see what's going on reported that it is not as much of the building as we thought. It is a simple design. It goes together easy. So there could quite conceivably be enough space inside that building already for a not a 2 million production line, but certainly a, 5,000 a week, 10,000 a week kind of line, which would be tremendous. And yeah, so what it would mean is you've got your first line in Texas. As soon as it's dialed in, it can go anywhere. Mexico could be second, it could be third. Shanghai builds very quickly. If they begin an expansion there, they would be able to get moving in a year and a half at most. The question I would have is expansion where? Because they can't expand the footprint on the current site. Tom Jew had told Matthew Donegan Ryan that they do have an option on the land next to it. Matthew is no longer invited to events. We need to end that embargo. But they could also build it just at a factory nearby. There's plenty of land around.
Okay, so what was you said a year and a half for the Giga Shanghai?
Phase one of Shanghai took a year to get from groundbreaking to production. Now, it was mostly a knockdown shop at the time, meaning only something like 10% of the parts were made locally, and everything else was brought in, whether from Fremont or from suppliers outside the area. But within 6 months, they were up to 70, 80% local parts, and within a year, they were up to 90% local parts. I think they would skip the knockdowns part because Tesla desperately needed to prove that this was working, so they got everything in and got it moving before it was necessarily ready. This is a whole new thing. They're not going to be making parts in Texas to ship to China to assemble there. So what they would do instead is just give it the extra 6 months and get everything in place. When they built the Model Y line, it only took about a year from groundbreaking to production, and that was a much bigger facility across many more floors, and it still came out in a year. But this is also
Right. Well, so
a new product where the 3 and Y were known products.
how is it possible the Giga Mexico can be faster than Giga Shanghai expansion? Let's just quickly listen to this 1 minute clip of Elon because he said this.
Low-cost electric vehicle that were made in very high volume. We're quite far advanced in that work. I review the production line plans for that every week, and I think the revolution in manufacturing that will be represented by that car will blow people's minds. It is not like any car production line that anyone's ever seen.
Is this going to have the basically unboxed system, or would this be too much of a question to ask?
The thing that's most interesting about this is it's a production system. It's a level of production technology that is far in advance of any automotive plant on Earth.
No, I can hardly wait. Now,
Yeah, it's gonna be cool.
It's going to be very cool, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think and I should point out that we will be making the first production line will be here in the Gigafactory in Texas, in this
Oh, I
facility.
thought it was going to be in Mexico or something.
That'll be the second place.
Oh, that's way cool.
I love Sandy. The other guy's pretty good too. But the hesitation there tells me there's more to the story that he can't say. And you noticed he was very careful to not make material forward-looking statements that could be in violation of SEC rules. And that's smart. I appreciate seeing that kind of maturity. I think Mexico will be second.
No, he does that. Yeah, that's just in the way he speaks, right?
Well, right,
he has
but
these little things.
Yes, he can't.
He was very clear.
Yeah.
It's second. There was no hesitation in my mind. He said this is, and it's going to be second.
It could be rumors out of China are inaccurate or overly ambitious, or it could even be that someone saw that they've got permits in for a building and it's going to be the Megapack factory, and we have a miscommunication there, or someone who's a little overly ambitious. So that's also quite possible.
Yeah. I just did a poll and it looks like it's 50-50. 50% of people think that it's going to be the next. I asked the question, where's the next factory could produce the $25,000 car? Is it Giga Shanghai? Is it Giga Mexico? 50-50 at this point. Elon said Mexico. So I guess my point is that first he said that we are very advanced in our production plans, right?
Right.
Very confident that it's going to be incredible. Then he says that it's going to be first produced in Giga Texas, second in Giga Mexico. So if you're advanced already, how could you be you know how many years before Giga Mexico? Unless there might be, again, I'm wishful thinking. Giga Mexico might actually be moving ahead sooner than we all think.
Well, I saw a lot of people saying Mexico's dead, it's off the table. But what we heard on the investor call, on the quarterly earnings call, was that we are finalizing the design. Until the design is finalized, the building can't be finalized. And until the building is finalized, you can't even request permits. They want to make it perfect. If you're going to be making, if it's a 50, if putting this pillar here is going to result in a diversion that costs $50 a car, $50 a car, even a million cars a year over 10 years, that's a $500 million in efficiency. We want to avoid that whenever possible. So they're going to have to, I think they would rather go a little bit slower, accept that inefficiency in Texas to get the line up and proven, and then make it perfect in Mexico, perfect in Shanghai, and anywhere else they would wish to build it. And you've got some really clever thoughts that I completely disregarded on the modularity of the compact. And I would love if you would take just a second and share those.
Well, okay, so the idea was that you heard Elon say a long time ago that the next gen platform, the unboxed platform, is going to be modular in design. And so what did that mean? Well, as we learned that unboxed the model is to have different parts connected together like a Lego. And so if you're able to do modular, the way I was thinking about it was that if I wanted a two-person car, I'd create a compact car, the front, the back, the sides, the top, plug them together. But then if I wanted to have a four-person car, I would just add a middle part. And then you plug them together like Lego. So you take out the front and back, and you put it in the middle. If I wanted a limousine, I can have three of them. And then it becomes modular. If I wanted a van, I just have a different top. But it's all exactly the same back. It's all exactly the same front. Maybe the same, rows also. That's the thinking. The question I have right now, though, is I've heard that the Cybertruck is partially unboxed model. It's not the full, and we talked about this in one of the shows that we're doing, that it's got the steer by wire, but it doesn't have the brake by wire, so you still have wires coming across. But so my question was, if they're building it in Giga Texas, and that's where they're doing the Cybertruck, to what extent do you think that the compact car that production line will take the kind of the same kind of production learnings that they've done on the Giga Texas? And if it does, where does it make sense to launch it first, right? Giga Mexico, which is what they were planning to do in the beginning, or Giga Shanghai?
So Mexico versus Shanghai. Boy, that's tough. I would say they both have fantastic trade agreements around the world, many of which we are excluded from. So anything made in Texas is not going to have as many opportunities for export as something made in Mexico and probably even Shanghai. We have about 25 free trade agreements. Mexico has about twice as many. And they're in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which we are not. We're working on a new one that would be a little different than that and get us some of those benefits. So between Mexico and Shanghai, trade-wise, I'd say they're roughly equal. The benefit to Mexico would be that it'd be a shorter commute to ship them to South and Central America. But the engineering and manufacturing prowess of China is not to be underestimated. They can make the same car a little bit better and a little bit cheaper than probably anyone, as we've seen with production out of Giga Shanghai. So I think between those two, I don't know for the US, but the beauty is it can be, based on what we're talking about, the modular design, it can be a different car. In the US, it could be a hatchback or a convertible.
Oh, interesting.
Where in Mexico, the exact same car could be a four-seater city car or a little cargo van, and it doesn't have to be the same thing. This could be not one car, but all cars moving forward.
Okay. So they're definitely doing this in Giga Texas. All right. They're definitely going to do it in Mexico. We just don't know when they're going to do it because we heard that they might delay the investment until the recession turn or clear. The macro is clear. Now we've heard that there's news here from local news from Giga Shanghai that they're going to start preparing the expansion, the third phase 3 expansion, which is designed specifically a compact car. Are we going to hear news about Giga Berlin?
Well, we already know that they've got preliminary permits submitted. We've already seen they've got the trees cleared. They're already putting in another commuter rail station all the way over there, which is kind of too far to walk for the people working in the phase 1 area. So that is already, those blueprints aren't submitted. The site plan is, and we're getting through the comment period now. There is, in my opinion, no reason that if the pilot line in Texas works, they couldn't announce 4 factories.
Okay. So we just heard Elon talk about it, right? We just heard Elon talk about this, and he said we're pretty advanced. How did you interpret what he was talking about? Because he did say just production line plans. I am every week, overseeing the production line plans. But then he said we're pretty far advanced. Do you take that to mean it's going to take 2 years? It's going to be 1 year? Could it be 6 months? What? How did you interpret that?
Well, I think the right number is always 2 weeks, but I'm going to go with, I would still say 2 years because it takes a minute to get these things done. And when you're talking about a whole new vehicle, road testing alone is 3 to 6 months.
Okay, so you're talking what, mid 2025?
I would
December
say
2025.
I'd say December 25 is the earliest it would be on the road for customers, but certainly it wouldn't be sooner than that. And I hope when they do the road testing, they put like a badge from another company on it just to throw off the scent. Who knows? Maybe they're already road testing them and we've seen them and we just didn't know. But I suspect it's going to be sufficiently weird that no matter what badge or camouflage you put on it, people would say, that's something different.
But I don't get it. How could you be road testing it today if it's not going to be released for 2 more years?
Well, no, that's what I mean is it wouldn't be. But when it road tests, it is not uncommon for manufacturers to disguise their vehicles to look like they belong to a different brand just to throw off the scent. Cybertruck was even disguised to look like an F-150 quite successfully, if you remember that silly wrap they put on it. But that one was more of a joke, but they still did it.
Okay, so talking about the production line for the compact car, when he said it's going to be the most advanced, you've never seen a car built this way, was he just referring to the unboxed model? Or some people, quite a few, are actually thinking that this also might mean that the human or robot might be involved?
So I think the robot is sufficiently far out that if he tried to design the factory around that, he would get pushback from the engineers saying, too risky. This car is going to sell in such volume that we don't want a repeat of the over-automation disaster we had with the Model 3. But the humanoid robot can go anywhere a human can go. So build it. The big takeaway Joe Tegmeyer shared with me was the number of human stations in the Cybertruck line was breathtakingly limited. It's all robots, and they're the big kind, the industrial ones that do a thing. Those are easy. Those are well understood. They own their own automation company that they bought through Groman, and it's not a problem. So anywhere that you would want to use an Optimus, you can still use a person. So I think we're going to see not a specific design around Optimus, but that is a possibility that they could just, slot in there as the time, when the time is right.
Yeah. So this is where you and I disagree. I'm very bullish on the bot. And I remind people, very few people know this, but when Tom Zhu stood up at the Investor Day presentation, and I've got the clip, I don't have it ready to show here. He actually said that Giga Mexico is going to have 10,000 employees, maybe 5,000 humanoid robots. He said that.
Yes, but he also said
Tom Zhu.
But he also said
not Elon.
the factory could be built quicker than Shanghai. And I think that was more aspirational than logistical. I think that would be wonderful. I would love to see that. Not sure that that's a thing that's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I think that's what he's referring to. I'm part of that camp. Very bullish.
Raw Denny says the demand for an $18,000 Tesla after incentives would be unquenchable. And I tend to agree with
and
that.
specifically in China, right? So we know that Tesla is doing incredibly well in China. Number one sales vehicle being sold in China, Tesla Model Y. But the BYD is because there's no competition for all the smaller, less expensive cars. This would come in and just completely disrupt it. And that's why I think that Giga Shanghai is going to come first. And so that's why it's confusing when I heard him say Giga Mexico next. Now, if it's 2 years from now, then I still, you know what I mean? Like it's going to take longer to build a brand new factory than it would be to just expand Giga Shanghai. We know how quickly they are. So I still kind of don't understand why Elon would say that it's number 2 is going to be Giga Mexico. But of course, he would be right. He's going to be right.
And when he said, so one thing you'd asked earlier that I would love to discuss is he said it's going to be radically different. Now, what does that mean? Well, when we saw the Cybertruck, it looked radically different. A conversation you and I had in a video on, I think, your channel that'll be running tomorrow maybe, is about Jason Kamisis, or I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong, from Carmudgeon said they could have made it look like a Cybertruck and just cranked it out almost immediately. But instead, they made it Cybertruck to the core. There's a lot of new things that are radically different. And I think with the compact, we're going to see something that's radically different, but also get something that beneath the skin is still a game changer. Because all of these, there are so many things in the Cybertruck that the industry has wanted to do for generations, and they just, for whatever reason, couldn't. Sandy was saying when we were pushing everyone to go to 48 volt, they would start, and then the legal team would look at it, and then the supply chain, and then everybody looks at it, and finally it's just, nope, not now, maybe in the future. And Tesla's not afraid to be bold and do things that others get nauseous even thinking about.
Yeah, so that's why when he said that, it's the Cybertruck production line is already bold. It's already unbelievable. So when he said that, wait till you see the Gen 3 compact car. This is going to be completely revolutionary. You know what I mean? Like he should have said the same thing about the Cybertruck production line. So
yeah,
it's going to be a complete unboxed model, which you explained to me. You should explain to folks here.
Sure.
Because the Cybertruck is not completely unboxed because they don't have they have steer by wire, but they don't have brake by wire.
Right.
And then explain that.
So real quick on
it's
that.
It's going to be more than just unboxed. Yeah.
So I've got a whole video coming out on that with my good friend. I think his name is Herbert. We shot it this morning, but to go over it real quick, the idea is everybody wanted to do unboxed, but they couldn't. The stamped materials have to be stamped all together, welded all together. If you tried to bring them in pieces, you would end up with substantial points of failure. But if you've got that casting in the back and that casting in the front and that skateboard in between, the structural battery, now you've got pieces. You've got actual pieces. But the engineer that I talked to out in Michigan who was saying, it won't work. We can't do it. We've been already bringing in whole dashboards for decades. We've been bringing in whole door panels already assembled, ready to go. The reason we couldn't is because you still need a wiring harness that spans the entire car, which has now been mitigated with the 48 volt architecture. And then you also need hydraulic lines that run the length of the car for the brakes. If we move to brake by wire, that last obstacle between you and unboxed is gone. And the claim we've heard is, well, but brake by wire, there needs to be a fail-safe. As you pointed out, they've already got double redundancy in all of it. And as I pointed out, there's a third redundancy, which is if your car can get you from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds on the motors, it can get you from 60 back to 0 in 3 seconds on just the motors too. That's your third line of defense in case of catastrophic failure. And then the car can just triple the regen and you're done. It can do it electronically through the software so you don't even feel it. It just gives you a warning saying, look, I'm going to give you 10 more miles and then if you're not at a service center, you're going to need to call a tow truck because the brakes are out. And it's all the pieces have come together. And Brembo has a Sensify product. I think it's called Sensify, which is brake-by-wire. Brembo is an extremely well-respected, trusted name in brakes. If they've got it and they say it works, there's no reason Tesla can't just buy it and use it like they do other Brembo products.
Yeah. So this is the good news, right? So basically, Elon said that this production line for the Gen 3 platform, which they already said is going to be unboxed, is very advanced. Like we're well on our way to doing this. That's fantastic news. And then now that we're hearing that Giga Shanghai is going to expand, they're going to already prepare to expand this. This is from local news. It sounds like it's much more than just, rumors. They're already preparing to do this. That means that they're pretty confident that this line is going to work, despite it being so revolutionary. This is incredibly revolutionary, right?
Yeah.
This is this is just a quick side note here. William was saying Elon should employ Sandy Munro to be part of the Gen 3 compact. I think he might be. He might already. So
he
Elon,
did say
Sandy had said several times that I'm on NDA.
Exactly.
I said to somebody, I think that he was on and when he said that, he was referring to that just prior to the actual unveil of the Cybertruck, he was able to talk to the 5 Giga Tesla executives, and they showed him the insides of the truck, and he's not able to talk about that. Somebody told me no, actually he's on an NDA for a broader relationship that he has with Tesla, and that actually makes a lot more sense.
That makes a lot more sense. It could be either, but Sandy did say I'm under NDA, and that's not. He's revealing it in front of Elon, so that's as much confirmation as you need. A comment I saw was that David said hydraulic brakes also fail. There is no additional layers of fail-safe there. When I was a teenager, we learned that if your brakes fail, put it in low gear and get to the side of the road. This can all be done that way, but with software. So and in terms of partnership, to William's point, if things don't work out at Tesla, Sandy has let Elon know that he is welcome to come work at Monroe. So he's got a backup plan, you guys.
He's got a backup plan. Okay, so Brian, this production line for the Gen 3 is going to be the unboxed model. It is so brand new. Most people and almost everybody is saying that you need to create a whole new factory for this. You can't just retrofit an existing factory. Now, they did do that for Giga Texas, so it sounds like that they are going to use a new space in Giga Texas to do this. But that brings me back to Giga Shanghai. This is a phase 3 expansion. That's a whole new factory, right?
Whole new space. Because the space they have is already in absolutely full use. There's, you can fit anything into an existing space. It's just not ideal. We saw Tesla is still using the sprung structures in Fremont for line 4. That's, maybe not how they'd like to do it, but it can still work. You can still make a profit. And if they really want to hold off on building that bespoke factory, the greenfield site, until they know where every pillar and column and floor needs to be, all the heights, that doesn't have to stand in the way of building the compact. It just means that the ones coming out of Texas, like the Models 3 and Y coming out of Fremont, would be a little less optimized in their production. And as a result, maybe they cost $100 or $500 more to build. That's okay. Just get them perfect. Use that, learn from it, and then get the other sites under construction.
Okay. In this conversation that Sandy had with Elon, he said to him that by looking at the Cybertruck production line, I believe it's going to be 60 cars per minute. 60 cars per hour, which is 1 car a minute. Right? 1 car every 60 seconds. And then the Tesla Model Y and Giga Shanghai is coming out at 1 car every 43 seconds, right?
Yes.
How fast do you think that this compact car could come out if it's unboxed model, this whole new way to build it, could it be faster than 43 seconds?
My answer would be, why couldn't it? I guess the limiting factor would be, how long does each stop along the line take? Because if any one stop takes more than 43 seconds, that's your limit per line. And the way around that is you build more lines. But if it doesn't have, the real test to me is the time from the front door to the back door. And if it doesn't have paint, you just took 24 hours off. If it doesn't have, if any one of the stations, if every one of the stations can be a 30-second station, there's your answer. There's going to be hiccups and delays here and there, but modern auto assembly lines allow for individual cars to be pulled out to keep the line moving, so that one problem doesn't hold up everything. So I think the better question is, how many parallel lines can you fit in the space that would normally take up one line? Can you put two lines coming out of the space that used to take one? Because if you can, you just doubled your capacity per square foot. And that's an exciting idea.
The benefit of the unboxed model, right? They said that, right? It's going to be twice the efficiency for half the square footage, right?
Right.
Because you can build basically this one piece in one corner, and you just build, and then they all connect at the end. Instead of taking the whole line going in and slowly adding parts in.
So it could be like a funnel that's got
4 lines.
Yeah, that's got 4 things feeding into one, and they just spit out finished. It'll be very interesting to see. I think the shape of the factory, maybe not from the outside, but the shape of the line of production will be very different, because in Shanghai, what we saw was basically a straight line. It was a horseshoe. And then what we saw with Model Y is that it's more vertical, where pieces are coming in from all sides. And this would be more of that, like 4 stations at the beginning that have all the pieces, and they just pop onto one line and out they go. It'd be very interesting to see.
This question here was pretty good. The question was, do you expect to have heard anything on Cybertruck being built in Giga Mexico?
I have not.
Now, yeah. Oh, I've not either, right? So it's not like, if you were, do you believe that the compact car is so different? It is so different than the Cybertruck that you should really build a factory dedicated for that? Or do you think that they are similar because they share the same, that it's going to be on the same platform or something similar about it, right? The 48 volt and all that, that if you have a Cybertruck line, it's easier to build a compact car, and then therefore these places will have both.
I think the compact is going to be different in terms of scale, in terms of just kind of everything. Unless they're going to be, even if they're doing the stainless, I don't think they would need to do the stainless. I don't think they would need to have it in a common place with the Cybertruck. And I think the idea is to continue expanding the lines in Texas. Add a second line when the first one is finally maxed out, which is going to take a while. And then as needed, add a third and fourth line. I don't see a tremendous benefit to spreading them out in the same way, apart from the fact that they're quite bulky in terms of shipping. But I believe international shipments are going to be sufficiently limited in the first 3 to 5 years that it won't be beneficial to have additional factories, certainly one that close, because then the shipping issue is mitigated because they're only 8 hours apart by road. So they're awfully close.
Okay, I got a question for you. I wanted to ask you this question because you and I had a big show done. You educated everybody about the demand for sedans, the demand for compact cars. Why are they building? Now, we know why they're building the compact car in Giga Texas, right? Because he wanted it to be as a brand new factory, new process, new car, built in where the executives are and the staff are. But why build in the U.S.? People are saying the compact car segment is not going to do very well in the U.S. market share. You should have done it in Giga Shanghai. You should have done it in Berlin, in Europe. And why did they choose Mexico? Well, what's your thinking about them choosing first Texas, and then he said the second line is going to be in Mexico? Why does that make sense as opposed? That's why I'm saying this Giga Shanghai news this morning, that makes sense.
So I have a theory. The first theory is, like you said, the engineers are in Texas. Let's build it close to the engine. Yeah, we could fly him down every day and fly him back every night, or make him go there for the week and come back. But he doesn't want them going home for days at a time if possible. These employees are very excited about what they're working on, and this is very exciting. So I think getting the design was always going to be in Texas. If we're designing it here, if we're dialing in the line here, let's keep the engineers as close to the line as possible. But then to what you said, if it's going to be in everything on one platform car, it doesn't matter that Texas is only going to make 1 or 2 versions of it. If Mexico is going to be making 3 or 4, maybe not even ones in common, and the ones in China. For years, I've been saying, I hope that the compact is 3 cars, 1 designed in Berlin, 1 in Shanghai, and 1 in the US. But this, thanks to the things that you were able to piece together and open my eyes, we can see that it could be anything. It could be 10, 20 different cars, of, maybe you've only got 3 different wheelbase lengths. Maybe you've only got, 1 or 2 different tops for each one. But if you've got a short car, you could have a coupe, you could have a convertible, you could have a roadster. And then on the longer one, you could have your 4-door, you could have your micro van, and then go a little bit longer. Now you've got your minivan, your cargo van, and small cargo vehicles are very popular internationally because they're easy to get around, and a lot of population density is great enough that they can just zip around a small delivery area and get right back to home base. So I don't think this is running contrary to the mission at all. The biggest reason I thought Texas wasn't going to come first, the biggest reason was we had one source on it. And I won't report something if I only have one source. That's not enough. If I reported everything that had one source, I'd be wrong most of the time. But the main reason was the inability to efficiently export into countries where we need favorable trade agreements. But the demand for this domestically and within our 26 partner countries is sufficient that if it's a different form factor, if it's a coupe or something else, that it's going to do the trick.
Yeah, I'm going to show a couple notes from our audience, which is very smart. I love them. This one says, good day, Monterey, says, Mexico has trade agreements with almost every country in the world.
Yeah.
That's why it makes sense to build it there. Thank you for sharing that.
He's a smart guy. Smart guy, by the way. Check him out.
Good day, Monterey. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one here is actually my theory. This is my theory. It says Bruno says compact cars are precursor to the Robotaxi. US will be where Robotaxi rolls out first. Biggest market is there for US. Bruno, that now makes sense. Now, so that could mean, so why the US, right? Now, I think the reason he did Giga Texas was because of the real reasons, right? You can't, you need to oversee this. And so let's build the production line, the test line here in Giga Texas. But then for them to say that the second will be Giga Mexico instead of Giga Shanghai, that's the part we're debating, right? Because they just announced Giga Shanghai is going to expand. That's the news this morning. And yet yesterday, Elon said at Sandy Monroe that the first place they're going to do compact car is Texas. The second place is going to be Giga Mexico. Why? It could be, I mean, just speculation here, but if he's so confident about Robotaxi, you'll want to build it in Giga Mexico and Texas because like Bruno was saying, Robotaxi is going to roll out first in the US. It's not going to roll in Europe and other places because it's most fitted here for the US. That's where FSD has been used. I mean, that could be a big of a stretch on our part, but that's what makes sense.
That could be. I did want to say real quick, if you're enjoying these, give them the thumbs up so that YouTube knows to show them to people. And if you haven't already, subscribe because we're working our tails off to get you great content and insight and all that. In the comments, I would ask, what kind of car do you want to see? Pop it in the chat because there's as many types of car desire as there are types of people, which is to say 2. There's 2 types of people. No, I'm just kidding. Robotaxi is by definition a compact for single or 2 persons. Is it? It doesn't have to be. Does it have to be? Why not 4?
No.
I would say most of my taxi rides are with 2 people, but
it's this cost, right? If you want to really make it so compelling, and like what is it, half the price or a quarter of the price of the a Lyft or a Uber,
Hmm.
is
But a
the
big
two
chunk of that
person,
cost is the human labor. Uh,
yeah,
but on Uber there are Ubers and there are Uber XLs, and if you need more
yeah.
than two people in the car, it is a different price category. But like you were saying, this vehicle in a modular design
This
could
is
be
why.
two or four or six
Exactly.
passenger.
So if it's a modular design, right? Modular design means you can have like the back, you can front, and you can have any number of middle parts as all. You can have all of that. And if it's designed for Robotaxi first, like if you think about it, so instead of just removing the steering wheel and the pedals, and then all of a sudden it's a Robotaxi, they could, once they know for sure Robotaxi is going to work, they could design it for Robotaxi. Like meaning in my mind, it could be like a box. It doesn't have to be a car shape. It can just be a box,
Sure.
screens everywhere, right?
Oh, well, Andrew points out the robotaxi needs to be able to carry stuff as well. So what I would say to
Yeah.
that is think of like a mid 80s Honda Civic. That was a 4-seater with a little bit of cargo room. If that size was a 2-seater, you would have you would have enough to get two full size pieces of luggage per person and still fit two people quite comfortably. Just take out the back seats essentially, and you would have a vast cargo space plus 2 seats. And then, like you said, expand it to 4, expand it to 6. Why not? Uh huh.
Yeah. The only part is this one, which is when if you remember the visual that they showed, you had the Roadster and the S in one category in a column. Then you had the Model 3, Model Y in a column. You had the Semi in its own column. Then you had the Cybertruck and then a covered thing that looked like a Cyber van because it was this
Mm-hmm.
bigger boxy thing. Then you had the compact car in its own column.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, yeah, Cyberbus and Cyber van, but the compact car could be its own thing.
They will need something that can handle more than 4 people for the Boring Company. They're expanding it. The line is approved to expand all the way out to the stadium, and getting people out of the stadium 2 at a time would be prohibitive. But if and remember, these are point to point transport. There's no stops along the way, but there's only so many stops on the train on the line. So if you've got something that can handle even 6 people or 8 people, let alone something that looks like what we originally saw for the Boring Tunnel, which is more of a commuter stand-up pod kind of thing. But in that, you could easily say, well, this one's going to Caesar's Palace, 6 people get in, and away you go. But I think there would need to be options greater than 2 seats for that in places like Las Vegas, where it's going to be used for not just onesie twosie passengers, but also large events.
What do you think about this comment from Catherine? She says, you don't need to build the whole factory. If you just need half the space to build twice the product, you could build a quarter of the factory and start production.
And that's right. That's right. If we're not building 2 million, if we're not going straight to 1 million or 2, half of that, a quarter of that is still a substantial number. And especially if the objective is to prove out the line and dial in all the inefficiencies, that would absolutely work. And there's no rule that says that once they get the line running in Texas, they have to leave it in that part of the building. They could just go across the highway or another part of their vast amount of land. Elon said 2,000 acres. Joe Tegmeyer is saying more like 2,500 to 3,000, depending which parts you're including. It is a very large piece of land, and they've got plenty of space that's already flat and ready to go for something if they wish to build it there. And that's what that's what I think we'd be likely to see.
I just interviewed Joe Tegmeyer yesterday, and we'll drop that video this weekend. Joe, as many of you might know, he's the person who every 2 days he goes to Giga Texas and he flies his drone and he just watches all the developments. And he was already predicting that the Gen 3 compact car was going to be built in Giga Texas many months before because he had seen the permits, he had seen kind of like movement within and just lots of pieces that he pieced together. And so he's actually saying that there's actually already space in Giga Texas, and he's guessing where it is. That is already where they're building the production line, which Elon has already confirmed. Do you think that this just when Elon said that it's just production line plans versus an actual production line? Do you think that there might actually be a production line already?
I don't know. If you'd asked me a week ago, I would say definitely, definitely not. But as of today, I'd
Yeah.
say 50-50. Because he is saying production design, he is not saying the actual lines themselves. So
Right.
I'm not sure. But if he's reviewing the production design, that means that they are a lot farther along than I expected. A lot further along than I expected. Yeah.
Why? What was the original expectation? Because wasn't it always end of 2025? Isn't that the same time
Yes,
frame that they've always communicated?
but we didn't see groundbreaking. And we know that the design wasn't finalized as of the last earnings call, so that led me to believe that there was a delay in the designing of the vehicle itself before
Yeah.
even that. And it sounds to me like the design of the vehicle is maybe not locked, but getting close to it. And what Joe was talking about was on the west side of the highway. At one point, we saw them lay out another emerald foundation area that was graded and graveled and ready for building. And there were permits and speculation it could be a SpaceX facility or some other tangentially related company. But that was never confirmed. And then at one point, they said it could be offices for Tesla. But I think Joe and I are of the opinion that they were going to be building production over there. And it seems that maybe they've gotten more efficiencies out of the existing factory, so they didn't need that space just yet. And it just makes sense to keep moving forward with a compact design even still while they wait.
Okay. So tell me, the Giga Texas, what are the cars that they're making there?
The Y and the Cybertruck,
Mhm.
and that is all.
Okay. So if they build the Y there and they build the Cybertruck there, now they're going to build the Gen 3 Model 2 compact car. Aren't you going to have like too many different kinds of production lines, therefore different kinds of, like just the supplies are different, the lines are
No,
different, you're
because
not sharing anything?
no, but you're right
Doesn't
that
make
those are
sense.
vehicles that do not have a lot of parts in common. But no, I
You
mean
can't have
different.
3 different production lines. That's my point. I'm still of the belief that the compact car is sharing the production line of, or the same similarities as the Cybertruck.
I think the size difference alone makes that unlikely. And I don't think we'll see that many parts in common. All three of these vehicles will be made in sufficient volume that the lack of parts in common is not going to be a big deal. They will,
Okay.
and in terms of management, I don't know how much you know about the warehouse on wheels philosophy, but the idea is instead of having a big warehouse full of shelves where you put stuff all the time, a semi truck trailer is dropped off, it's full of stuff. The inventory is digital. You know where everything is. And when the truck gets empty enough, you put it in a different trailer and that empty one moves out and a full one comes in and replaces it. And it's a very cheap, quick, and easy solution in a digital world. Chelsea wants to know, where are they building Optimus? I talked to people who were on the tour, and they said they saw things in there that lead them to believe Optimus may already be under construction in Texas, that there may already be some limited production of Optimus in Texas. And what I have heard is that, that is where they would intend to build it, because they've got all the engineers, they've got the production, they've got all the capacity, all the pieces are there. What have you heard?
So I absolutely believe that 95% of if I was a betting person, I'd say it has to be in Giga Texas. That is what they're building. And that's why I keep coming back to you and going, how can you build four different things in one factory? Doesn't make sense. But somebody was telling me that if you look at the job openings, the job descriptions for the factory for the Optimus production line, it was in Nevada.
Okay.
So I still,
yeah.
yeah.
Both of those would make sense. It's the assembly, the production for that is going to be a much smaller footprint than it is for a car. So they could be building them.
Well, it doesn't make sense because I think that just like Elon said, I need to be here, my executives need to be here, the engineers need to be here. Giga Texas is their headquarters. They're going to want to be there, and we're going to use the robot. It's going to be in the production line. That's what it's for. And they need to have fast QA, right? As soon as they know that some part's not working, some activity, they need to quickly fix it. Like, like take off the hand and put on another hand, you know, like
Right.
swap out parts immediately as soon as they break or something happens, or they
Sure.
want to improve the process or change the dexterity of the fingers or something like that, you know?
And there's a tremendous value to having your engineers right there in the building, looking down into the space, seeing what's going on. And that's a mistake that Ford and GM have made is they've got their ivory towers and then their production is in whole different cities, a commute away. If it's 4 o'clock on a Friday and you need to get down to the production line, it ain't happening at Ford or GM because it's, what am I going to deal with rush hour traffic to drive to another city to look at it? I'll deal with it Monday. Well, guess what? By Monday, Tesla's already lapped you because their engineers fixed it at 4:18, and they've been running full speed to the thing. The Joseph had a good point. He said what Elon is not saying is that Optimus will definitely be used at the factory, and I don't know if that's
What do you mean?
well. He hasn't.
What do you mean?
I believe Joseph means in the Sandy interview and in recent things we haven't heard definitively that Optimus is close enough to that point for it to be considered.
Well, so I have a theory on why that is, because it is true that we've not heard Elon mention Optimus for a month. The last time we had was the drop of the demo, and then he chose not to talk about it during the New York Times interview. He didn't bring it up during the Cybertruck presentation. Many of us were expecting that Optimus will be part of that presentation. There will be some part of it. And the reason I think he's not doing that is because there's going to be another demo. I just sent a note to a bunch of my friends this morning. It says, I'm willing to make a bet that there will be an Optimus demo before the end of this month. We're talking 3 weeks that there will be a demo presented. And that's why he's not done it. He wants to have a demo to show why. So I keep trying to explain to people that Optimus today can be used now in the factory. And I'm not saying there's going to be thousands of them. Let's say there's maybe 200 of them in 2024, but they can be moving as slow as they are now, but they can already grab things and move it from one place to another place, some simple job, and it can already work now. There's no reason why it can't be part of the process.
One comment John pointed out was, doesn't Mexico need to move a lot more earth to grade the site than other factories, and won't that create a delay? And the answer is yes. It is going to be, the earthwork is going to be significant. And I would expect them to start on that well before anything. So I'm surprised they didn't begin grading while they were still finalizing the design, which is something that they have done in other factories. We know Berlin did not even have real permits when they started. They had tentative permits. And if you don't get your final permits, you got to tear it down. I don't think that that's as big of a concern in Mexico. So I would really like to see them getting to work on the earthworks as soon as possible.
So let me just update folks who missed this, but basically there was news this morning that Tesla is preparing for Giga Shanghai Phase 3 to produce a $25,000 US vehicle, dollar car. This is from local media that's reporting this, that they're restarting construction of the third phase. So that's very good news for Tesla. Brian, did you already explain why they said restarting? Why did it start and then stop in 2022?
Well, the planning is what started and stopped. There was plans in 2021. We don't know where it was actually going to be built for sure. We just know that there were reports of it. And then all of a sudden there were no reports of it. And as much poking and prodding as we did, we couldn't find anything. And we don't know. I think the delay was, we don't have the design finalized, and we've got a couple things we're working on that'll make it better, so it makes sense to hold off. And I think the engineering for the Cybertruck may have diverted headspace and engineering talent to that project to get it finished. And once it got into its final dial-in stage maybe 3 to 6 months ago, when they were finishing up the road testing and you could let, for example, the 21 guns take it from here. They got back to work on the compact, and that's where they're at now, is my theory.
Gotcha. Okay. And then somebody said this could be fake news. I mean,
It can be.
I think it can be for sure. But the only reason I am not treating it like fake news is because it comes from local media.
Yes.
And so far in Shanghai, in China, the local media has been very, very accurate. They've not been. I mean, am I right there? What do you think, Brian?
I would say absolutely. They are a lot more careful about fake news. And I would say that the other reason we're giving this any weight at all is because it's consistent with what we already know. It is consistent with past reports from multiple sources, and it's a move that makes sense. It's not something that you see in like when Reuters, of all people, reported that Tesla was going to be building a factory in Mexico City and flying cars out finished. I looked at that and said, this is bonkers. Do not repeat this rumor because it makes no sense. This, on the other hand, makes perfect sense. China needs a compact electric car from Tesla, and it will absolutely work. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Great news. I mean, if this is true, we'll find out more in coming days. You always keep a very close eye on Giga Shanghai and all the factories. Follow Brian at My Tesla Weekend on YouTube. And thank you guys for joining us today. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody. I'll fix my mic, hopefully.